Everyone says stress is negative, but what if stress could give you superpowers, make you smarter, make you energized, make you healthier? Turns out it can by changing the way you think about stress. So today I'm going to talk about how your thoughts change your stress response, the benefits of a positive stress mindset, how to adopt that mindset, and when to use it. Now, before we get started, I want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Trevor, and I help scaling entrepreneurs turn health into their unfair advantage without becoming a full-time biohacker so they can perform better, feel better, and ultimately scale their business faster. All right, let's get started. Your thoughts change your stress response. Humans are uniquely able to trigger stress just by thinking. By simply anticipating a stressful event, we activate that stress response. When you're lying awake at 3 a.m., worrying about getting back to sleep fast enough because you have a busy workday tomorrow and you want to have enough energy to crush it, you trigger that stress response. You trigger that stress response with your thoughts alone. And the stress response, it's been designed to save our lives. When you trigger the stress response, adrenaline is released to make you focused and alert. Cortisol is released to give you energy to fight that threat or run away from that threat. And endorphins are released to blunt the pain response. And this was great. Back when we were surviving outside in the wild, it made a lot of sense. But in modern life, when this response is triggered by everything, it usually does more harm than good. So how can we use this stress response to give us superpowers instead of letting the stress response destroy our bodies? And to do this, you need to adopt a positive stress mindset. Turns out if you change the way you think about stress, you change your body's stress response. If you think stress will be debilitating, it will be. If you think stress helps you rise to the challenge, it will. That's why some people crash under pressure of a big presentation and others don't. And it turns out if you view that big presentation as something that's scary, something that's a threat to your survival, then you're going to perform and feel much worse. You're going to be more anxious and more nervous. You're going to have that heart beating out of your chest. You're going to stutter over your words. And after the presentation is over, you're going to need much more time to recover. Versus you view this big presentation as a challenge, something that needs to be conquered, a problem that needs to be solved. You perform and feel much better. You're more positive. You're less anxious. You're less stressed. Your blood vessels stay relaxed instead of constricting, which has a lot of negative consequences on your health. You're more confident. You're more energized. You have more oxygen rushing up to your brain. And overall, you just crush the presentation and look forward to solving that problem and conquering that challenge rather than viewing this big presentation as something that's scary. And that's exactly what this Harvard study found. There were two groups and they had to give a speech. One of those groups was given a pep talk like, hey, stress is really positive. It helps us rise to the challenge and gives us energy. While the other group, they received no pep talk. Then they gave the speech. And it turns out the group that received the pep talk were less anxious, less stressed, they were more confident, and they had less negative health consequences on their bodies. So you understand that our thoughts can change our physical stress response. You understand the benefits of a positive stress mindset. But how do we adopt this positive stress mindset? The first step is to change your definition of stress. Stress is not negative, it's neutral. When you stress about something, it means you care about it. And we're going to dive more into that in the next section. But in order to adopt a positive stress mindset, when productive stress hits, you need to view it as a challenge, not as a threat. Your body will then use that stress response as energy instead of letting that stress destroy you. So the first step to do this is to acknowledge your stress. Notice how your shoulders and neck tense up. Notice how your thoughts start becoming more stressed. Notice how your heart starts beating faster. And then what you want to do is ask yourself, why am I stressed? What do I care about that is making me stress? Is it your friends, your family, your business? And then figure out what that thing is. And the next step is to, instead of trying to spend your time and energy getting rid of this stress, you want to remind yourself, I am stressed out so I can achieve the thing I care about. I am stressed out so I can help my girlfriend become healthy again, so I can scale my business faster. I'm doing this to solve a problem. I'm doing this to rise to the challenge. I'm not stressed out because it's negative. I'm stressed out because I care. And during the stress response, you want to remind yourself that all the symptoms you're getting, they're positive. When your heartbeat increases, Your brain is going to get more oxygen and energy when your muscles tense up. That's going to lead to better focus. When you have butterflies in your stomach, that means that you care, and that means you're going to accomplish whatever challenge is in your way. And if you continue to tell your brain this, over time, your body will start to change its stress response to support this belief that stress helps us rise to the challenge. It is not something that is negative. Another way to reinforce this mindset is to do hard physical feats. So continually exercising and challenging yourself during exercise, whether that's using stress to climb a mountain, or using stress to push through a hard leg day, or using stress to run a half marathon, whatever it may be, you will remind your brain that stress, again, helps us rise to the challenge. It is not negative. It is a tool, and we must harness the power of stress to accomplish our goals. The second way to adopt this mindset is when you're stressed, look to connect rather than isolate. When you get stressed out, what you probably want to do is hide in a hole and try to figure out that problem. But what the research shows is that you should actually be doing the opposite. You should be connecting with other people. So when you're stressed, what you want to do is ask others for help or help other people. And what this does is it increases the release of oxytocin, and it also makes it more potent. And what oxytocin does is it acts as an anti-inflammatory. So it makes stress more proactive than harmful. It also increases your empathy, so your emotional awareness with other people. And then what it also does is it heals your heart from stress, which is pretty crazy. And it also, again, keeps your blood vessels relaxed, like we talked about earlier, which can have a number of health benefits. And to do this, all you need to do is when you're feeling stressed, call a loved one and talk about it, or text a mentor and talk about your situation. Not in a needy way, but just be like, hey, I have a lot of deadlines coming up. I need to figure this out. Or, help me with this bottleneck, whatever. And what you can also do when you're stressed again is help other people. So you can help your parents plan a trip, or you can help one of your friends figure out a business bottleneck. All of these are going to help increase and make oxytocin more potent. And this is just going to help you deal with stress so much better. The last step to adopting this mindset is telling the right story. You need to be the hero, not the victim. You need to learn from the stressor. You need to focus on the positives and focus on the future. When that stressor hits, what are you going to tell yourself? Are you going to be, oh no, this is so bad. I'm not built for this. I can't do this. Or are you going to say to yourself, I can do this. I can be the hero. I'm not going to be the victim. I can rise up to the challenge and figure this shit out. You have to make sure you are telling your brain the right story. If you tell your brain the wrong story, it's going to activate that threat response, and your performance and health is going to suffer. And then after the stressor happens, you also want to learn from it and focus on the positives and focus on the future. Be like, hey, this is a turning point. My co-founder left me. Shit's bad right now. I have to fill a bunch of roles. I have to put out a bunch of fires, but you know what? This is going to be the turning point. Looking back in 5 years from now, I'm going to be at a 8-figure valuation, and my company is going to be killing it. That is the type of mindset you have to take when you're dealing with a stressor. And you want to work on the stress response you struggle with the most. And I'm just going to recap really quick how to adopt a positive stress mindset, and whichever one of those you struggle with, then make sure to work on it. So firstly, we want to view stress as a challenge, not as a threat. We want to rise to the challenge when a stressor occurs. We want to view that stressor like we are solving a problem. Secondly, we want to connect with other people when we're stressed. We don't want to isolate. You want to either reach out to other people and ask for help, or you want to help other people when you're stressed. And finally, you want to tell the right story. You want to tell yourself that you are the hero in your story. You are not a victim. You are not going to sit there and pout. You're going to go after it, and you're going to solve that problem. So now you know how to adopt a positive stress mindset. When should you use this mindset? Because stress is an expensive process. The stress response requires a lot of energy. So if you constantly turn it on, you're going to be exhausted, even if you take a neutral or positive outlook. The goal is not to look for more stress. The goal is to change our outlook on the stressor based on the type. We're going to change our relationship with stress. We're going to view stress as neutral or positive. But how we view the stressor is going to depend on the type. So we're going to talk about these two stressors. The first type of stressor is productive stress. Productive stress helps us rise to the challenge and get closer to our goals. Productive stress is a situation you can change with your actions. For example, say you have a client project due tomorrow. That's going to stress you out, but You can change that by finishing the project. You can change that with your actions. That is productive stress. And during productive stress, the same principles apply. And we want to apply some of the principles of the positive mindset. We want to rise to the challenge. We want to view this stressor as a challenge, not a threat. Again, we want to connect and not isolate. We want to reach out to other people for help, and we want to help other people. And finally, we want to tell the right story. We want to tell ourselves, I'm going to grow. I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to grow from this. I'm going to play the hero. I'm not going to play the victim and tell my client, oh, I can't get the work done. No, I get the work done. Even if it's 6 hours long, even if it takes all night, I will get the work done. And that is when you should be using the positive mindset, is when you have productive stress. The second type of stressor is uncontrollable stress. This is stress you can't change right now. And this might be a stressor that goes on forever, a problem that you have forever. Or maybe in the future, you can get the chance to solve this stressor. But for right now, you can't do anything. And when you try to control an uncontrollable stressor, you waste your time, energy, and you do a lot of damage to your body. Instead, you want to accept the situation and focus on the stressors you can control. For example, let's say you lost your biggest client. You could think about how you could get them back or everything that went wrong, or you can focus on the stressors you can control. Focus on how you're going to get more clients. Focus on how you're going to change your process. This way, you utilize stress. You don't let it consume you. You don't let it have all its negative impacts on you. You utilize stress to rise to the challenge. So after you accept the situation and focus on the stressors you can control, you want to apply the positive stress mindset to the stressors you can control. You want to, again, rise to the challenge. And you also want to connect with other people. You want to tell other people about the stressors that you want to solve, not in a needy way. Again, something that is productive. And you also want to help other people while you are stressed. That's also going to help with the stress response. And finally, you want to tell the right story. You want to tell yourself, it's hard. I lost my biggest client, but I just have to accept the situation and I have to focus on the things I can control. I'm not going to give up here. I'm going to focus on the actions that actually move the needle instead of sit here and worry and stress. That is not productive for you. And most real life stressors are going to have some productive stress and some uncontrollable stress. Say, for example, your co-founder leaves you. Productive stress, where you rise to the challenge and solve a problem. You need to temporarily fill in his role. You need to tell your team about the split. You need to remove him from the admin accounts. That is productive stress. That is stress that you can solve. The uncontrollable stress is worrying whether he's going to start a competitor or worrying what your clients will think about the split. You can't control that. You have to just accept that stress and move on and focus on the stressors that you can control. All right, to make this clear, I have a little flow diagram. So when the stressor hits, you want to ask yourself, can I take action now? If you can't take action, accept the situation. Understand you're never going to be able to control the stressor and it's going to do more harm than good. Next, you want to, if you can take action, what you want to do is adopt a challenge mindset. You want to rise to the challenge and solve the problem. Then a day goes by, a week goes by, whatever. If this stressor is still negatively impacting you, then you want to apply other methods from the positive mindset. You want to tell the story. So you want to tell yourself that I'm going to get through this. This is hard right now, but I'm going to rise to the challenge and I'm not going to be the guy who sat there and quit. I'm going to fucking do this. And you also want to connect with other people. You want to tell other people about the stress you're going through, a loved one or a mentor. And you also want to help other people because helping other people can increase the release of oxytocin like we talked about, which has a number of benefits. And that is how you want to be dealing with everyday stressors in your life. If you change your relationship with stress, you're going to be less anxious and less nervous. You're going to rise to the challenge when productive stress comes. You're not going to view it as negative. You're going to view it as positive. And that's going to give you energy. It's going to make you mentally sharp versus you viewing stress as something that is debilitating, that is going to be a threat. That is just going to make your stress worse. That is going to make your performance much worse. And you're just going to feel like shit when stress hits. And if you're going to take one thing away from the video, it's to view stress as neutral. It is not positive. It is not negative. Certain situations, you want to let go. You want to accept the situation and move on. In other situations, you want to view it as a challenge to be solved. And if you can take this outlook on stress, you're going to change your body's physical stress response. And this is going to help you in so many ways. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. And if you'd like further personalized support with me, you can check the first link in the description to learn more about working with me in a one-to-one format. Thank you guys again. Have a great rest of your day.